Have you heard the verse Romans 8:28? For we know that all things work together for good for those that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. See, sometimes we stop in the beginning of the verse, all things work together for good. We may even stop at all things work together for good to those that love God. But what we fail to do is dig a little deeper when we experience those bad situations in our life. Like, for instance, let's just say a loved one caught cancer, or you yourself has caught cancer, or maybe you have experienced the loss of a loved one recently. Maybe you've just gone through a deep depression and an emotional and spiritual digression. But in all these things, if we're truthfully honest with ourselves, when we experience those things, we don't see the good happening. You know, it's almost like I've heard this illustration before and I'm going to use it again. But we go into God's kitchen and we start tasting things that maybe aren't fully complete and developed, or that haven't, that just isolated ingredients to a bigger picture. So we look at that death that we experienced and we go, God, this is bitter. This doesn't taste good. You know, we look at that sickness or that depression or that spiritual digression and we go, God, it's just too bitter. It's not good. But what we fail to do is enact and live out that part 2 of the verse. To those that are called according to his purpose. And so we get to the point of where we just start tasting all of these isolated ingredients going, ugh, 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 ugh. But in reality, God is really cooking up something that is far bigger than our own purpose and what we might want. And let me tell you, that death or that situation that you don't fully understand, it tastes like garlic isolated. We just don't see it. We don't understand it. It's like taking a handful of baking powder and munching down on it. It doesn't taste good isolated. And that's how we experience life. We see things in isolation. God sees everything all together. And so what God is doing is he's taking this circumstance and he's blending all of these ingredients and he's making something amazing. It's almost like if you know, take that baking powder and then you put some sugar with it and you bake it and you get all these different ingredients. You put the icing on top of everything and you make a cake with it. That cake, all together with all those ingredients, it tastes good. But separate, some of those ingredients don't taste so good. The same thing applies to the bad circumstances in our lives and all those things that we experience that might not taste so good isolated. But in the end, God is bringing everything together to work together for good because we love God and we are called according to his purpose. So if you're experiencing a bad situation, maybe you're feeling bitter about something, maybe you've experienced a death or you're just in a deep depression about something, let me encourage you. It's not something that you want to hear going through it, but in the end, God is working all of this together for something bigger than ourselves. He's working it together for his purpose. And we know that if we love God, everything will work out in the end. He's putting it all together. We just have to be faithful and trust him. And I don't blame you, and I do the same thing when we go through those tough situations. It's okay to pour out those emotions to God. It's okay to question the why, but don't question the who. God is in control, and I promise you, he's told us, he's promised us that it's all going to work together according to his purpose. And we just have to lean into that and embrace God and then love him for who he is. Thank you so much.